Thanks for joining me today, Andrew Adelson, the sommelier from the world famous French Laundry in Yountville, California, formerly of Bouchon Bistro in Beverly Hills, RIP, right? And of course, the Grand Del Mar in San Diego. I mean, your resume pretty much looks like a who's who and what's what of everybody you would want to take part in terms of fine dining and great wine lists. So I'm really happy you could join me here today. Obviously discussing the topic of outliers in the wine world. And the reason that I wanted to ask you to show up today was primarily based upon the fact that you've worked with some exceptional wine lists, as have I. And from the understanding that anybody can come in and look at your wine list right now or the wine lists you've built and written and find incredible Bordeaux, incredible Burgundy, great Napa Valley classic producers. You can find Santa Barbara, you can find South Africa, the best things you could look for. But there are parts of your list, and certainly mine, that were overlooked consistently. And I don't just mean by the appellations, but by even producers sometimes. So I wanted to get into a discussion, and feel free to jump in as much as you'd like, on the idea of how we can sell and how other sommeliers, because a lot of sommeliers will watch this, on how they can guide the conversation, not away from sales, but away from simply somebody saying, hey, I want to drink Chateau Palmer 1989. Can you please bring that over to me? And you have some other cool, special, small thing that you got from, you know, the other side of the Dordogne, and you just really want to showcase it. So overall, tell us about your experience, you know, first off, in all of the lists that you've worked with on how it has been working with such a great wine list and recognizing that you have two different sites to play with.
You know, I think even from the very beginning and you know, starting in 2008 at the Grand Del Mar, that was a really pivotal moment for me in my career. To, you know, that wine list, being able to work with the Amaya list and also to study from the Adelson list, were those resources are so rare, I think, and that really, I think, gave me a big boost. And certainly the mentorship, and you included there, was incredible. And so, you know, looking at those lists, you have your regular go-tos, and then the kind of more rare, interesting, overlooked stuff, like you said. And I think that, you know, and stop me if I'm getting off track here, but I think that when it comes to getting people to look at those things, and certainly things are a little different at the French Laundry, because most people that I take care of, I may never see again, you know, but at Bouchon and at Amaya, we had the majority of people that came in were people that came in every week. And so, you know, my job, I've always looked at my job as more long-term, and how do I build a rapport with these guests? How do I gain that trust and take them from place to place to place, to get them from where they are and what they love in that box? A lot of people are in a box, right? And so how do we get them out of that box, and how do we build a bridge, you know?
Let me put a box around you right now and see, because I'm sure you've experienced this before. You know, I would do the same thing if I was in Burgundy. I would go into a great restaurant, and what am I going to drink? I'm going to drink Burgundy, right? And you are in the heart of Napa Valley. People probably went to 3 different tasting appointments in the afternoon. Some of them might have been a cattle call where they're waiting in line to go get their pour from 6 or 7 people behind a bar. Some of them might have been, you know, curated special tastings. But when that person, say, walks in and they went and saw, just because I love these wineries, Opus One, Pine Ridge, and Blackbird Vineyards. Let's say those ones, because they're all sort of in the same little area. Let's throw Dariouche in there too, right?
Sure.
They came into your restaurant tonight, and it's a couple, and they say, we want the Dariouche Reserve Cabernet, please, 2016, or let's say 17, because it's probably on the list. How do you guide them, recognizing that, of course, your service is the first and utmost point of why you're doing your job, but how do you guide them away from something that is so well known to them, means so much to them, at the same time as showcasing your list?
Well, you know, I talk to them a little bit more. I dig a little bit deeper into how important is it for them to have that, because sometimes there's a reason why people are selecting a wine that we know that maybe it, a lot of times wine involves sentimental reasons, right? And then maybe it's a vintage, or maybe they got married at Dariouche, or, you know, and maybe they're part of the Dariouche family, and it's not a good idea for me to steer them away from Dariouche. But I ask a lot of questions, and more importantly than asking questions, I listen to the answers, and I find out pretty quickly, is this somebody that I want to take somewhere else? Can I enhance their experience by taking them somewhere else? And if I find that they're willing to move, to budge, then I look at things that I think are interesting, and I also have a responsibility to the restaurant, right? So I want to make that move, and without leaving money on the table, right? And I think, I hate to say that, but it's important. It is important, you know. I have a responsibility to the restaurant, but particularly, you know, I would say more so at the French Laundry than because I might never see these people again. Right. You know,
it definitely is a one-time, you know, special occasion restaurant. Of course, there are people who've been lucky enough to dine many, many times, and I'm sure you know many of them by name. But truly, it's most people's bucket list restaurant where they check it off one time and go there. And it seems difficult that if you wanted to showcase a cool Atlas Peak, small production, 150 case, but just badass Cabernet, that it's hard to guide someone out of the reserve Dariouche, you know, list price is probably what, $375 or something, to maybe a bottle that you found personally from being around in the region and going, this one for $220 is just pretty incredible. And how would you change if we took you out of the French Laundry today and put you back in Bouchon and Beverly Hills? Would that have changed your opinion now that you're trying to maybe guide somebody into a memorable evening?
No, I think it's the same approach. You know, at the French Laundry, I would say it's easier to get people to move. You know, I want to make sure that I have a reason to move people, and that it's a smart idea to move. I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision for the guest, right? Because I'm always advocating for the guest. And, you know, people come to the French Laundry and they look at me and I'm lucky, right? Because they're like, oh, this guy's a sommelier at the French Laundry, so we can trust him, you know? And you don't always get that same trust in other restaurants. You know, a lot of times I've worked in restaurants where people come in and they look at you and like, that's the guy that's going to try to take me to the hole right now, you know? And, and so we got to break that wall down, right? We got to gain that trust as soon as possible. At the French Laundry, that wall is kind of, I don't want to say it's non-existent, but I'd say it exists a lot less. And particularly, it's not a big risk for me to say, if somebody wants Dariouche, it's not a big risk to say, look, I've got this really cool small production, 200 case production, Cabernet Sauvignon, or 100 case, you know, like McDonald, you know, which is right in front of Dietert on Tokelon. And we're the only restaurant in the world that gets it. And, you know, it's like $295 on the list. That's not a risk. That's like a give me, you know? Right. And I kind of live in this fairy tale world of the French Laundry where that happens at almost every table, you know? But there are times where somebody points and shoots at something and there's no reason for me to take them anywhere else. Right. You know, but if I feel like the time where I think it's most important to move people is when you find these people, they're overwhelmed by the wine list, right? They're looking at the Cabernet page, for instance, and they're like, there's a lot of scale at the French Laundry in the Cabernet list, but to most people, it just looks like a lot of $500 to $1,000, $2,000 bottles, right? The $150 bottles are on there, but they're not seeing those. It's intimidating. And, they oscillate between a few bottles and then they settle on this bottle. They haven't selected this bottle. They've decided that they're comfortable here and they're going to settle on this bottle. That's when I come in and I say, look, I'd love to open that bottle for you, but I've also got this, and then I go to like Hawke's Bay, New Zealand, and break out some red gravels from Blake family, and it just knocks their socks off, and it's less money than they were going to spend, and they were going to spend $150. So look, if I knock them down to $125, I have crushed it for the restaurant. I have made them happy. I've enhanced their experience, and there's no loss there. There's nothing but gain, right? And there's a lot of situations like that, where people have been saving their whole life to come to the French Laundry. Or at least that's what a lot of people say. Right. And how do I go ahead?
Let's take us backwards though, from the aspect, because, part of this series that I'm doing with so many wonderful people around the industry is for the trade, for people who are, many of them sommeliers right now, some of them wine directors, some of them who are, trying to pass their master exam all the way through. Can you talk a little bit though about how you manage your inventory, all of those cool, small production, Hawke's Bay, red gravel, small things that you found that you recognize works well with the food, are gateways into, a greater part of the world at the same time as fulfilling a guest's needs? Because, for me, I found the reason that I went into pushing so much of the Northern Loire Valley or outlying appellations like Ardèche within the Rhone, or Saint-Péray and, Crozes Hermitage as opposed to Hermitage, was primarily because I bought these wines. I had them as jewels. I worked with, most recently, Pierre Gagnier, and he is from the Rhone Valley. He had a huge amount of Rhone Valley wines. And yeah, it's easy to say, great, let me get you some Gamay and have a great night. I mean, I would be happy to drink that every day of the week, but the business requires also that those wines that I purchased to flesh out my showcase on the list of his region need to be sold. And so how do you balance that out from the fact that, yeah, you bought this wine, you've paid for it, and the business needs to recuperate those funds at some point? Or does that not go to your head at all?
Not really. I mean, particularly at the French Laundry. I mean, I'd say at Bouchon, it was a little bit different. But at the French Laundry, we have this wonderful wine director, Eric Johnson, and 3 sommeliers. And Eric we're always coming, everybody's got ideas on what they want. And it's we are nonstop buying wine. I mean, wine is coming in every day. Things come in. Nothing is so precious that it can't be sold. We always want to put the wines in the right place, and it's not my job really to deem someone worthy of a wine, but it is my job to make sure that I'm going to put a wine in front of somebody and they're going to enjoy it. I don't want to put something in front of somebody to have them say, this isn't what I'm looking for. And that goes back to really asking questions and listening to the guest, and then taking all that information and saying, is Jose Palacios Bierzo going to work well here? I think so. And I think they'd really enjoy it, or are these people wild enough to go for a Medio Pepe from the 80s, and, and it's surprising how many people these days are. I mean, it certainly has changed in the over 10 years since I've known you, and I think the scene has completely changed. But
I can tell you that, at Twist most recently, because that was the last time I was on the floor, and it's been a little over 3 years, I had a list almost every single night in the side station for the captains, which were sort of first in, first out kind of focus, right? Not to say that table 22, no matter what they order, we have to sell them the 2008 Lucien Lemoine Bourgogne Blanc because it's got to go out this week because it's been sitting in inventory too long. But I always wanted to have a highlight, because not necessarily for the guest where they look at a page that says, oh, top 100 sommelier selections for the spring menu, right? I didn't want it to be that obvious, but I wanted it to be, at least for the business and for the captains and for myself, something that we reviewed, knew that they were good for the food currently, knew that it needed to move because maybe we've had that 08 $22 wholesale bottle just for too many years, and know that should the conversation come up about great value and, you know, a good amount of age to something, but really is going to drink well right now, that they would have that kind of like back pocket ready go kind of conversation. And for me, it was always, you know, as the wine director, a balance between how can I give them what they want at the same time as giving them something that is going to make the business happy, also hopefully introduce them to something else. And, you know, always I had those ones in my back pocket. One of them specifically, Dupont Fawn, their Bourgogne Les Chaumes de Perrières, which is, if you are familiar with this bottling, it's Merceau Premier Cru that was declassified to Bourgogne appellation because the producer repatriated soil that had run off of the vineyard back to the top of his portion of the vineyard. And all of his neighbors said, dude, you're not allowed to do that. And he had to declassify his wine for something like 15 years. And so you get this Premier Cru appellation worthy wine for next to nothing. And it's incredible. And for me, it was cool to go, why do I want to downsell somebody from a $235 Merceau Premier Cru to a $90 Bourgogne? Because I want them to remember the one time that they came to Twist, how this guy knew so much about his wine list and bought the things that would make people happy that, you know, not everybody's drinking Premier Cru Merceau every day. So I want them to go home and say, hey, I found this cool bottle at this place. And that value of them telling their friends next time they go to Las Vegas, hey, go to this restaurant because this guy has some cool stuff on there. I gained value from that, not only from inventory management, not only from finding something that is going to make them happy, like you said, on a budget or even, you know, lesser than what they were asking for, but also from the perspective of guiding them outside of the box. And I guess that's if we leave Napa Valley now and we just get to your personal opinion, where are some of these places in the world that you're trying to guide people outside of the box? You know, when they're ordering Pauillac, where are you taking them within Bordeaux or maybe even somewhere nearby? Or if they're ordering Burgundy, where are you taking them? Or, you know, any part of the world, what's really kind of got you turned on right now?
You know, I think that South America is a fun place to go. I mean, it's tough when it comes to Bordeaux varietals because I'm in Napa, right? And even though we're in at the French Laundry, and we've got tons of stuff on the list. A lot of people that are drinking Cabernet or Bordeaux varietals, they want to drink Napa Cab, but you know, we've got a lot of Alma Viva and fun stuff like that I love to show people, and certainly great quality and better value than most Bordeaux varietal wines here in Napa, right? But I like to think that something a little more subtle works. You know, if you're going to drink one wine or two wines with the 9-course menu, you got to have something that's really versatile. And so I like, you know, things like Bierzo or Ribera Sacra. I think Jimenez Landy, or, you know, those Grenache, those Madrid Dio wines are really fun. I think, you know, it's easy to go to put somebody on to really expensive wine from Ribera del Duero or Rioja, but it's also kind of fun to like break out some old Tandonia We've got some half bottles recently. We have a huge half bottle list, right? We use mostly half bottles in our pairings, and it's always fun to get into. But I think Spain is a fun place to go. It's really versatile. It's great value. Chateau Moussard, I was surprised when I got to the French Laundry and saw how much Chateau Moussard was on the list, going back pretty far too, which was a lot of fun. And, I think I kind of alluded to this a few minutes ago, but I think that things have changed a little bit. People are, and I don't know if it's the Somm movies have something to do with it or just overall awareness, but people are willing to get geeky. They're willing to get outside that box. We just need to push them outside the box, and gently nudge them outside the box rather. But I've got people that they used to come in. I got people that still text me like every other month from Amaya at the Grand Del Mar, that they were drinking delicious, like big Lewis Cellar Chardonnay, and I was like, you can't just drink Lewis Cellar Chardonnay all the time. You can. I mean, Randy Lewis is great, and I love those guys. But let's move away from that for a little bit, and at least every other time, and take you through Burgundy, and then next thing you know, they're drinking Huet, and some of them are like texting me pictures of Grosvenor, and stuff like that. So I think
actual pictures of Grosvenor or pictures of bottles of Grosvenor?
Pictures of bottles, of bottles. But it's so easy to get caught inside of a box, right? I could easily just drink white Burgundy for the rest of my life,
sure.
If I had a never-ending budget, right? But that's so boring. It's so boring. I mean, it's great, but it's one of the things that's so exciting about wine is that there's so much out there. And when you start somebody on a journey, then they just go do it themselves, and they'll never forget you, and they'll always come back. They'll always take your word. They will always trust you. And that's what we do. It's not about,
this is exactly where the communication and the conversation I was hoping would go, because you have a very difficult job to do, especially because of the French Laundry first. We can just put that out there wherever it goes. And you've built your career up to having that sort of, with great power comes great responsibility. But the other part about that is, yeah, you have one chance to not only give them the wine that they want, but give them the fact that you can push them outside of a box or out of the nest to let them fly free, hoping that you were the one to do that. And I'm sure for you every night, it's not like you're just stepping onto the floor and popping bottles. It truly does have some weight to the decision that you're making.
Sure.
The best experience. And I don't, I've certainly been there, and I don't envy you right now because I don't have that responsibility anymore. But have you ever had to walk people back from the ledge where they have wanted nothing more than to order a mid-80s Emilio Pepe Trebbiano, and you're like, okay, let's talk about this real quick?
Yeah, it might be sparkling, it might not be sparkling. I don't know.
Jolie is like that. I would never let people order Jolie in the restaurant if they don't drink Jolie. I'm like, okay, I know you've heard of this before. We do it at the quartermasters in the first day of class. We have a big picture of Nicolas Jolie. We talk about him a little bit, but I'm like, yo, we got to know that whatever we're opening, it's going to be a one-time bottle. It could be sweet, could be dry, could be sparkling, could be oxidized. Like, we don't know what we're getting here.
Yeah, no two bottles are the same.
Right.
I've had guys that represent the winery come in and say the wines are bad. I'm like, that's what it is, man. That's what it's supposed to be. I mean, it's not supposed to be anything. But yeah, I mean, I think that, to be honest with you, a lot of times I let them go for it. Unless it is like, unless we have one bottle and I'm like, okay, I need to like dig a little deeper here. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be like brown apples and cheese rind. And I always I'm like cheese rind and brown apples, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And if they're like retracting as I'm saying that, I'm like, okay, this is not the wine for you. And then I will like take them somewhere else. But you know, again, it's part of that living in the fantasy world that I live in, where if somebody orders a bottle of 96 Cuvée de Syrah and they don't like it, it's not the end of the world for me, and I'll get them something else. And not to say we're putting bottles, we're just like giving everything to, you know, whatever people want, we're giving it to them. But to some degree that's how it is, you know, and I'll find a spot for that wine. You know, we'll throw it on the cheese course pairing, the pairing for the cheese course, and get the money back. And there's just no fear, and there can't be fear because things are so fast paced. I mean, it's an extraordinary place that I work in. And just to talk specifically about the French Laundry for a moment, if I may, there's two sommeliers, one upstairs and one downstairs. And so you've got 8 tables upstairs and 11 tables downstairs. And it's your job to get everything that people want, you know? So if there's no stuttering, there's no misstepping, you go. You just have to go. You don't have an option, you know? So you have to pick your battles a little bit.
Well, do you want to answer a few questions that people have asked about the French Laundry? A couple
Sure.
people said, okay, Lauren Reynolds specifically wants to know what is the best wine for value on the French Laundry menu right now?
Oh, I mean, in my opinion, you know, I'm a big white bird guy, and I think the Moronnade Chablis,
sure,
you know, anything Moronnade is amazing. And I don't even like worry about the Valmore and the Grand Cru. I'll drink the Premier Cru all day.
Yeah. 13 vintage with a little bit of botrytis is my sweet spot.
I love Moronnade.
What are you looking for when you add new wines to the French Laundry list? Quality, exclusivity, is there something else?
A little bit of everything. You know, I think ultimately I want something, you know, and I don't do the buying. I certainly have some input, as do all the sommeliers, but I'm looking for something that I'm excited about and that I can get people excited about. Because, you know, I'm not gonna put something on the list or recommend that we put something on the list that I'm not excited about. Because people, and if you're excited about wine, if you're excited about this wine, you're like, you have to have this. People are, you know, 9 times out of 10, even more, I would say, they're going for it.
Right. You know, the last question I would ask is, you know, because I want to take your perspective from all of your tiers of restaurants, right? Amaya was fantastic, and it had, what, 1,100 some selections on it. Bouchon, I'm sure, was a much faster pace, had to have a little more narrowing down of things, but sure, a large enough list. And then the French Laundry is, you know, it's still a grand award list from Wine Spectator, right? So from all of this, where do you choose personally to kind of guide someone if they are just the Rombauer drinker? Let's take Rombauer Chardonnay. It's what they know they like. It's what you know that they've had 13 times in the last month because it's their, you know, once or twice a week kind of drink. And they come in and they just order that bottle. And you know that it's not that Dariouche that we talked about, that special bottle that they had because they got married at Dariouche. Where do you and how do you guide them away from that selection that they're comfortable with? Because we know some people just look at something they recognize, Rombauer, I know that, I'm going to order it. I'm here with some friends. I want to look like I'm, you know, running the table. How do you guide them away knowing that they are going to thank you for it? Because, you know, you have to make a little bit of a leap of faith, but most of the time, because you've experienced it, they are going to respect you for guiding them somewhere else. So walk us through that process.
So, you know, in the case, I know these people this is their bottle. This is what they drink. This is what they love. Then you baby step them away from that, right? You don't want to make too big of a jump, but you have to create that trust, that relationship, right? You have to coax them into coming with you. And the way I would do that really is I would look at that flavor profile. I mean, it's rich, it's sweet, and kind of, and I would find something a little bit, maybe a lot bit, but same varietal. I would take them to like Liquid Farm. I would take them to Liquid Farm.
For me.
Huh?
That's a big step for me. In my head, I was like, okay, we're taking them from Napa to Sonoma. We're like, hey guys, we're just going from this valley to that valley. That's the biggest step we're making here. And then maybe we go, okay, from there, we're going to go to Santa Cruz, right? Something like, well, probably not Ridge, but there's other producers up there that make, because Ridge is pretty reductive style, right? Or we take them somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's just
the thing for me is that you still have texture and richness, but there's this like bright, mouth-watering, it's irresistible. And if you had something that was no meat on the bones, super lean, that would be a tough jump.
Yes.
But if you have something that has that texture, right? You're not taking it all away from them. You're taking some of it away. Then you can hold on to them. If you go, cool climate, stainless steel, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. But I would not hesitate to move somebody from, if I knew I had them, to move them from Ron Bauer to something like Dovelet or
Bien Nacido Chardonnay.
Huh?
Bien Nacido Chardonnay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love those wines, man. I would crush those wines any day. Any day.
Just building on a program here that we put together and started off with how to write a wine list, I will talk to some of you who are watching specifically who are sommeliers and in the trade. The big important factor of how to write a wine list is making sure that you have all of the colors of the palette to be able to paint the experience that you want. If you only have Rombauer and Morone a day, you're gonna have a really hard time getting someone from this to that. And that really is the biggest part of looking at your wine program from a holistic standpoint. You need to know that, okay, someday I'm gonna have somebody who walks in and says, I got tired of drinking Rombauer. I just want to try something different. And you know that you can't just give them the Chablis Premier Cru that you had because you only have 2 Chardonnays. It's important to be able to foresee the future in this way that everyone is going to be on that journey and eventually lead from, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they drink Chablis and they want to get towards something richer, more powerful. But being able to put those beautiful sort of different colors of gray on the wine list so you don't have to go from black to white. And I think that's the best part about having experience, and why you wouldn't be, and forgive me for putting words in your mouth, but you wouldn't be where you are with the position that you have at the French Laundry if you hadn't have gotten the opportunity to work with wine lists of varying length, price, style, speed of service, to be able to take all of that history into consideration and eventually be in a position where you don't have the chance to make a mistake. And I think that's some sommeliers, they look at going through the Court of Master Sommeliers and they want to go from their intro to their master in 4 years. And I wish them the best of luck, but I don't think there's enough experience that has happened in that time to just learn the basics of wine. When somebody says they want Loire Valley Cab Franc, and I'm working with 75 wines at a bistro and I don't have it, but I do have Bierzo Mencia, I'm like, cool, I know what they're looking for. Or Schioppettino, maybe I'm at an all-Italian place and they wanted to drink Cab Franc. It's that experience of time that'll give you the chance to slowly educate yourself, as opposed to just knowing, hey, Chardonnay, let's go from Rombauer to Morone a day.
Oh yeah, And Will, if I can piggyback on what you just said, I think that it's a necessity for you to take the journey yourself. I'm going to go back to my corny journey analogy, to understand how to help others do it, and to be able to navigate that. I mean, if you don't know, if you don't know what's in the bottle, then you got nothing, for one thing. But if you want to, the most valuable you can make yourself is to do this for your guests, is to show them new things. They will come back every week to your restaurant. I've seen it happen time and time again. And they will spend money in your restaurant. They will tell their friends to come spend money in your restaurant. And that's really what we should be doing, is educating our guests and helping them educate themselves. And in addition to educating the people around us, I think, you have to be willing to do the work. That's the bottom line. And it's fun work. I mean, it's such an incredible decade for me. And I can't wait to see where the next 10 years land me.
Awesome. I want to thank you. And I want to remind everybody that I'll be doing this on Tuesdays and Thursdays, finding great leaders in the industry, and could not have the time to do this if it wasn't for the Miller family of Bien Nacido and Solomon Hills, making sure that we're able to reach out to the industry and share some things besides just our wines and the hard sell. But there's always a chance to put the wines on your wine list. So Andrew Adelson, sommelier, the French Laundry, and of formerly Bouchon Bistro in Beverly Hills, and some people were watching from Amaya back in the day. So I appreciate your time, and want to thank you for joining us today. Anything else you want to add before we finish?
No, I thank you so much for the opportunity, and stay safe out there. And yeah, just keep moving. Don't stand in one place for too long. You get stale.
Isn't it Dory who said it from Finding Nemo? Just keep swimming, right? Just swimming.
Yeah. Do it.
Thank you so much.
All right, my man. Thank you so much.
Stay tuned for the next one on Thursday. We're going to talk about how blind tasting really works in real life. It's not just a parlor trick, and it's how you get to know the wines to put on your wine list. So stay tuned. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks, Will.